Okay, it looks like we are live. My name is Moshe, and I'm coming at you from Israel and the Galilee. You might have heard of the Galilee in the Bible. and it's Friday today. I think it's 26th. 26th of September. And it's 7:33 in the morning. Let's see if our weather actually turned down in the temperature yet. Yes, today it downturns. Not a lot though. High 80s. And then tomorrow, high 80s. And then 90 on Sunday. And then high 80. Oh, in the middle of the week it goes down to the low and mid 80s. Okay, so we're actually on the downslide here on the hot weather, which is about when it happens. October is usually rather pleasant. And in recent years, before the rain and the cold started, we went into December, sometimes well into December. So we might have a good 2 months or 2.5 month run of temperate weather. I don't know. We could pray for it. Well, I think last year we did. It was, nice and warm. You could go outside, cool in the evening, but not cold. You didn't need to run your heaters. And we were able to use the solar heater for the water. We didn't have to run the water bill for showers and hot water. It was nice. The appliances here are kind of funny. Like the washing machines heat the water up, and the dishwasher heats the water up. So it's kind of funny. But the showers, no. You can buy an electrical attachment for your shower. What it is, it's a shower head that you take out your existing shower head and you put this one in and you plug it in. And they, in recent years, don't want you to do it without having an electrician come in and a licensed one, and then he has to change something and make sure it's safe. Many years ago when I was here, I bought, back in the 90s, I bought one and I just jerry rigged it. I plugged it in with an extension cord or something and I put it in. And I'm not kidding you, when I was taking showers, I used to feel the electricity. But it worked and you don't run out of hot water. I've had those in other countries. You don't have to think, oh, am I going to run out of hot water if you want to take a long shower. Now, here, our hot water heater is quite large. I think you could take a shower for probably 40 minutes, and by then, new hot water would come in. It's you don't run out of hot water. I mean, we don't. If we had, if we have people visiting us, 4 or 5 people, and they're all taking showers, then what we got to do is we got to run the heater repeatedly during the day. If it's solar, you don't have to worry about it. If it's sunny, but if it's not sunny and you're using the electric heater, you gotta pretty much put it on in the morning for whoever's going to shower, and then in the late afternoon or midday, put it on again, and then you're okay. But if you've got 4 or 5 people staying, then everybody wants to take a 10-15 minute shower. You got a problem. You got to keep that electric heater on all the time, and that's money. A lot of money. Okay. So what are we going to cover today? Well, Hegseth, the Secretary of War, or the Secretary of the Department of War, whatever Trump called it, the old Secretary of Defense, now the Secretary of War or something. He is calling a meeting not at the Pentagon, at Quantico. That's the base where the FBI, I think it's Marines, that's where the FBI has their training facility, and who the heck else knows who trains there. and he's doing it there, and he's calling something like 800 admirals, generals, and other high-ranking people in the military, probably colonels. Um, you see, the generals are generally Satan-bought bureaucrats, generally. So most of them are just idiots. They're there to enforce the will and wishes of the unclean spirits, and they're morons. It's usually the majors and the colonels that really are the brains and the people that know how to do things in the military. You do have exceptions. Patton was an exception. Rest assured, he was a Satan bot. And Patton, the soldiers liked fighting with Patton because he did things differently, and the enemies couldn't figure out what he was going to do before he did it, so there were fewer casualties and deaths, so they liked Patton. The other American generals didn't like Patton. Maybe he wasn't doing enough human sacrificing or something for them, I don't know, and they busted him. I think he was a 3-star general, they made him a 2-star, I don't know, something like that. I think he did hit 3 stars. He never hit 4. Now, back then, they had 5-star generals, so maybe he did hit 4. Because the real commanders were like Eisenhower and MacArthur. They were running around with 5 stars. But since World War II, they never had a 5-star. A 5-star general is a real freaky thing. When they retire, they get money to run an office and have a secretary. Pretty weird. Like they treat them like a demigod or something like that. Okay, so why are they doing this? We'll cover it with you. There's a few options to talk about, and I would say just to give you a hint of where we're going, it's Russia. I don't think it's Iran, and I don't think it's Israel, and I don't think it's Yemen. You know, I don't think that would ever. I mean, Yemen or Iran might warrant 20 or 30 generals or something, and admirals, but even no. This is different. Do I think it's China? No. China and North Korea, I don't have any reason to believe. It's Russia, and it likely has to do with the violations repeatedly, practically every day, definitely a few times a week, of the airspace of countries like Poland and Denmark, and he did other countries. Uh, Aircraft flying. I can't remember, about 4 countries in the last 2 weeks or so, and it's aircraft and drones. And some NATO countries are activating Article 4. Denmark likely will. But I think it's a day and a half or 2 days ago, Russia violated Alaska airspace. And that is probably the reason that Hegseth called this meeting. They are getting used to the idea there's war in the air. Now, I'll tie that together with you with what's happening to Israel and what they're doing to Israel, how Trump is turning against Israel and all this other stuff, okay? So what we're here to do is discuss the news, the current events, and relate it to Bible prophecy so we understand where we're at, okay? I don't sell anything. I don't tell you to go buy this survival food and use discount code Moshe. I have no discount codes. I don't sell anything. I don't get any commissions for anything. I don't promote anything. I don't get sponsored. It's just me. Okay, the only way I get supported is by free will offerings. I don't sell anything. Okay. Now we're going to do some Bible stuff too today about Shabbat and a couple other things, the new heaven and new earth. Okay, So let me jump into the live stream and see how we're cooking here. Everything feels like it's running nicely. Let's make sure. So it looks like everything's running nicely. 800 generals to do push-ups. Yeah, right. The only push-ups these generals are going to do is pushing up out of their easy chair. I do read the chat, and I do answer questions, and I do take prayer requests. Portugal, that's nice. Yes, I'm a Cone, descendant of Aaron, yes. I'm in Israel. Been here many years. Have the Holy Spirit. New Testament, Old Testament here. Both, right? So you know what you're dealing with. My moderators, thank you. Oh yeah, Marine. Yeah. I know it's Guantanamo's a Marine. There's a Marine facility there. I know that. Uh, Scout snipers. Yeah, they were pretty well trained guys. There's a guy that works in the Pentagon. He's got 30 years on the job, and he said in his 30 years at the Pentagon, he never saw anything like this. People are telling me that nothing like this happened since World War II. I don't think they ever called all of them. Now, I would say right off the top of my head, it's a dangerous move to call all the generals, admirals in at the same time, because there's a concentration of the military officers, the high-ranking officers, what do they call them, flag officers, in Guantanamo at one time. So, I mean, they could put all kinds of THAAD systems and Patriot systems and fly 11 helicopters and 16 jets around the meeting, and they probably will have something like that. But you never know. It's a dangerous thing. It would cripple the military if anything happened. I don't see the reason why he should do that. He could have done it virtual meeting on, the military equivalent of, you know, uh, it's done with TV screens, and I don't know why. Or he could have called Europe in, then Asia in, and then this branch in, and that. But he could have done it in over 4 days, broke it up into quarters. So China sinking in the ocean? What, are you serious? Yeah, I thought about them firing the generals and regrouping the generals and restructuring. I don't think so. There's other people on the internet that follow this stuff. They don't think it's that either. No. It's stupid. I mean, why would you call 800 and then fire 50 or something like that? What would be the point? You would just send them notices and dismiss them, fire them. and then have a meeting without them. You wouldn't have it with them there. It doesn't make any kind of sense. No, no. We're going to dig into this pretty deep, though. And remember, we're always going to be speculating, but we're going to use Bible prophecy as much as we can. Okay, I'm going to put a very fast, and I mean fast, it'll take seconds, post up here. And it's just going to be a few seconds. And if I talk too much during this, I will likely make typos, and then it slows it down, so we don't want that. If any of you have your thoughts as to why the 800 generals and admirals and other high-ranking officers are being called together, put it up in the chat. I mean, if you want to say they're going to get fired, it's restructuring, or it's about, fighting a war over the bottled water in Fiji, or that's a joke, or whatever, put it up. Put it in the chat. How do I know you don't have the right answer for this? I don't. I don't know that. I think I might have the right answer. And it could be multiple reasons, by the way. One of Trump's distractions, okay? But a distraction from what's Trump going to do? If this is a distraction, what's the activity he's trying to distract from? See what I'm saying? That brings us right back to Iran and Russia, doesn't it? Okay, being a Bible-believing site, Old and New Testament, I'm going to do some praise and we'll get going. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. So let's see if let me put up a good news summary of what Russia did when they violated the Alaska airspace. Oh, gold. Gold went up almost to 3,800 in the last 24 hours. It went to $3,790 an ounce. That is awfully close. Then it's dropped down into the 3,740s and 50s. So it's trying to push beyond 3,800, and I'm pretty sure it will. It may take some more fear-mongering of the media or something like that, and it'll go. So it's getting awfully close to 4,000, and I'm thinking some war breaks out, we're not going to see 4,000. You're going to see 5,000 for an ounce of gold. And when you see that, there's going to be a day, be it 4,000 for gold, 5,000 for gold. You're going to see silver go to at least 100, okay? Because the gold is just getting out of reach of people. There's always a bunch of people who are going to go buy 100 or 200, 1 ounce gold coins, But there's tens of thousands of other people that are going to want to get some metals, and they're going to be down to buying, a little sliver of gold. So what they'll do is they'll buy silver. Silver's almost at 50. It should hit 50 without a lot of difficulty. Although you got to understand, 50 is a big resistance point for silver, right? In other words, it pushes up, it goes down, Now there's people making a lot of money at silver. They take options and they control, 5 or 10,000 ounces of silver. And if silver goes up, $3 and you got 10,000 ounces, you got a good hit, you know? Okay. But silver is way understated and it's going to take off. It's going to take off. I've been talking about this for 2 years and it's made some nice gains, but not as dramatic as it'll be. Okay. Now, there are people that say, see, I think gold will go to 10,000 before there is no more internet and communication and everything falls apart. Or thereabouts, maybe 7,000, 8,000. It'll get very, very high. And some people say you might see silver at $200, $300. You might. You might. Okay. There's nobody on the internet coming out with any solid facts as to why Hegseth is calling this meeting. Nobody knows. I'm sure Hegseth and Trump know, but it doesn't sound to me like it's going to be televised. I think to be a one-star general or an admiral, you're going to have some pretty high-level security clearances. So what Russia did is they had aircraft. I understand some of the planes were actually bombers, but I don't know if we ever got an official statement from the U.S. government to that effect. But there's what's called the Alaska Air Defense Identification Zone. This is a buffer zone extending beyond U.S. sovereign soil and airspace, where aircraft are required to identify themselves for security purposes. So this was not a violation of U.S. sovereign airspace. The planes remained in international airspace and did not cross into American or Canadian territory. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, described the incident as routine and not posing a threat The aircraft involved were two Tu-95. I believe these are Tupelo bombers. If it's the ones I'm thinking about, they have four engines, let's call it, two on each wing, and they got propellers. But one propeller goes clockwise, and the other one goes counterclockwise. A weird thing. And these planes are super noisy. I heard them over Syria maybe 10 years ago, 9 years ago, and I was quite a few miles away, and it was a loud noise. And these things actually break the sound barrier with propellers. They go over 750 miles an hour. And they carry a heck of a big payload. And what you could put in there is anything, any kind of bomb you want to put in there. You want to put gasoline bombs in there. You want to put foam. Anything. You want to put water in there, whatever you want. And it's a very long-range bomber. It's got big gas tanks. It could go from Russia to America. I don't know if it could go back. And they also were accompanied by Su-35 fighter jets, which are maybe up to the top of their fighter jet food chain, or pretty high up, if not the top one. They probably have experimental ones and stuff, but it's getting up there. I don't think they correctly announced themselves when they went into this buffer zone. So essentially, that's what happened. Was there shooting? Well, one of the people that I respect when it comes to things involving Russia and Ukraine and Europe, I have a pretty high degree of respect for this person, although it gets into a little bit of the fear, beating the fear drum, but not really that far gone at all. Not really. Pushes the nuclear stuff too much, but that could be innocent. But anyway, this person thinks that there might have actually been an altercation with shooting. In other words, jets from America could have been dispatched, probably F-16s, and they might have actually engaged. Sending a package of two Tupolev bombers, Tu-95s, with two Su-35 fighter planes is pretty bad, okay? Pretty bad. Now, let's talk about what Putin's been doing in Europe with violating the airspace of several NATO nations with fighter jets and drones. He's actually created damage in Poland with drones. Some guy's house got hit. I believe he did it in Estonia. He did it in Denmark. You know, he's going nuts. Putin, as a minimum, this is a bare bones minimum, is sending a message to NATO to get the heck out of Ukraine and let me finish the war there with victory. Okay? That's exactly what Putin is saying. Don't give Ukraine any more weapons. If you do, I'm a crazy Russian and I'll start attacking. Now, Trump is in up to his eyeballs with NATO and Europe. Okay? So Trump's involved. Don't think he's not involved. He is involved. NATO goes to war, there's a chance that Trump would drop out, but I'd give it, 2%. I mean, almost. It won't happen. What would happen is Putin would probably whoop the EU pretty good. And after he finishes with the EU, then he comes for Trump. Trump ain't going to do that. So I think the meeting was definitely about what are we going to do about Putin. These people aren't idiots. They understand that if you leave Putin alone enough times, violating the airspace, and he even already caused damage with drones in Poland, he'll start going in and blowing things up. Now, what his drones are doing, there were also drones in France this past week. It's Friday this week. And they were going to military bases and strategic locations. Now, that's what the drones do. So not only is Putin trying to intimidate and scare these countries, okay, but Putin is collecting intel on them. He's taking movies of the bases. Why? Well, then you want to analyze the movies and build target packages of what they hit on the base. That's what he's doing. It could also be said that Putin is testing the mettle of these countries to see if they're going to stand up to him or they're just going to back down. That's a stupid idea because they might not want to have a war and they stand down, but when they see Putin blowing stuff up in their country, well, they'll counterattack rapidly. Now, why all the generals and admirals? Because the American military are not that retarded. And they understand the only way Putin could win. Look, Putin can't even handle Ukraine. How can Putin handle Ukraine plus NATO? They don't talk like this on Fox News, but how can they? They can't. Is there a way they can? Yes. What is that way? Well, Iran starts lighting the Middle East up with Yemen, probably with Iraq. Okay? North Korea attacks South Korea. China attacks Taiwan. And Trump gets drawn out into so many battles at the same time with America, they can't take it. That's what happens. America can't handle an attack like that. Don't think they can. They can't. They could try, but it's like sticking their fingers in the dike. As soon as you plug one hole up, another hole opens up. You're not going to get there. Now, some of these sensationalist channels are saying Kaliningrad is surrounded by NATO. First of all, that's a warmongering statement. Well, it's a statement from somebody that just wants to artificially make their people fearful. The nature of the geography is such that Kaliningrad is surrounded by NATO for decades. They brought more troops in near Kaliningrad. That they did do. NATO did. But that's not what the guy was saying. The guy was saying, oh, NATO surrounded Kaliningrad. Well, that's not nice to talk like that. That's not exactly an accurate statement. So Russia would only attack if he's coordinating with Iran, which would include, I'm sure, Yemen and Iraq, possibly um, the. Now, I think it's limited to that, and they could hit American bases in the Middle East and pick a big fight with Israel. Iran can, and China decides it's time to call Taiwan China. Japan will attack China. China will counterattack, and you got fighting in North and South Korea. So American military assets are deployed all over the place. But where are they not deployed? In homeland America. And now comes the sleeper agents. Trump, when he was running for office, said, I heard him. He said there could be as many as 30 million sleeper agents in America. Definition would be people that entered the country illegally and are military-age males without a family in fit physical condition. And 60 to 70% of those are military-age males. But let's be nice. Let's take the 30 million figure, cut it down to 10 million. Okay? Cut it down by 2/3. There are people that say there were 40 million illegals, but let's go to 10 million. And let's use the 60% figure. You got 6 million sleeper agents in America. If you draw the American military to worry about North and South Korea, China and Taiwan and Japan and probably Australia and the Philippines and Guam. Then you got attacks on the Middle East. America's homeland's not defended, and then comes the sleeper agents, and that's prophecy. They call them caterpillars, like caterpillars in the prophecy. Let me check the live stream for questions and prayer requests. Putin the terrorist. Putin's no good guy. Don't kid yourself. I mean, Putin's not a nice guy. Okay. Let's get into some news. And there's a lot of it now that I set the stage. But let's start with prayer requests. We got a prayer request from two people, CM and ES, Charlie Mike CM and ES Echo Sierra. Prayer request is that the Lord would keep these Catholic people from chasing after them and trying to poison them with their doctrine and so forth. So we have that prayer request for CM and ES, that the Lord would keep these Catholic gospel spreaders of the Catholic faith away from them. Okay. RG, Romeo Girl. RG, Romeo Girl. RG needs healing. Healing to be able to breathe properly and sleep, and healing for the heart and anxiety. That's a lot. That's a complicated prayer request. Let me try to go through it again slowly. RG, Romeo Girl. Prayer request for healing for the heart, healing from anxiety, healing for breathing better, and the heart, and to sleep better. Okay? All right, that was for RG. Now we have a prayer request for PM, Papa Mike, PM, Papa Mike. Okay, we have so prayer request for PM, Papa Mike, PM. We want to toss. So we, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I command you, unclean spirits, to depart from this person, PM. Immediately, never return unto this person again. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree with me. And also healing for PM, Papa Mike, healing for PM from various addictions, or delivered from addictions. So we also pray, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, that PM also be delivered from whatever addictions are affecting this person. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree. And the last we got is, and it's important, one of the very important things we do, KG, Kilo Girl, and MP, Mike Papa. The last one was Papa Mike. This is Mike Papa. So KG, Kilo Girl, and MP, KG and MP, that these two work out their differences. Okay, KG and MP, to work out their relationship. So my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for KG and MP to work out their relationship, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you guys can agree with that. Okay, I'm going to delete these so I know they were done. Okay, now let's go try to find. Well, some of the news is gonna affect on Putin and Russia and all that, but some of it's not. Some of it's gonna affect America. Okay, so it's rather wild again what Hegseth is calling the generals and the admirals in from all over the world. You know, these guys are stationed all over the world and all over the United States. So they're all getting called into Quantico. Quantico's going to be a madhouse. I think he's probably going to either have an auditorium he talks to him in, or he'll put up a big tent thing and then have chairs, portable chairs or something. Trump's also been mocking Putin recently. He's been saying that Putin is a paper tiger and stuff like that. Now, Macron is now saying that France is going to put sanctions on Israel over the Gaza war, and Spain has so far canceled 3 military weapons contracts with Israel. Now, this is wild for America. Former FBI Director James Comey, he's been indicted for some serious crimes. Grand jury indictment. You know, that means that you're going to go to trial. Okay. A grand jury indictment is a secret tribunal. It's against the Constitution, guys. You should know that. You don't get to go to your grand jury indictment. You don't confront your accusers. It's sick. But Comey came after Trump. And it's obvious that Trump is going after Comey for revenge. Trump is a very revengeful guy. He's been a long-term adversary against Trump. And what this guy could do if he's facing, I think, numerous years in jail, you know, I would think probably at least 5 or 10 and maybe 20, 30 years. He may try to make a deal with the U.S. attorneys prosecuting him to help them prosecute others and let him walk away. I don't think Trump will let him walk away. I think Trump would let him get away with 2 or 3 years in jail. In other words, so you still have a life, okay? You go in, you get out in 10 or 20 years from jail, well, everything's changed, and, you know, you go in for 2 years and not that much has gone wrong. and then add in a minimum security facility, lots of visitation privileges, and, or maybe he just gets to get out of jail free card. Now, he might not be able to deliver anybody. Or maybe he stashed records someplace in somebody else's house. I don't know. Trump might just want his head. At the UN, Trump's teleprompter went out, his microphone went out, and then the escalator went out. So obviously they did that on purpose. So he has the Secret Service investigating. They'll get to the bottom of it, most likely. They are predominantly not an investigative agency, okay? But they do have training, and they probably have their friends at the FBI helping them. They have jurisdiction because they could say that all this was possibly designed to lead to a threat on his life, and they could get jurisdiction. That'd be easy. North Carolina farmers are struggling for weeks, plural, long drought, and the fall crops are in jeopardy. Drought leads to famine, and famine is going to hit America along with the drought and the fires. And this is the beginning of the destruction of America, as stated in Jeremiah 50:51. These are not signs that it's going to come. This is the actual methodology of the destruction that's begun. They said we're setting records, the water levels reaching all-time lows in Maine. The drought is really in the Northeast and the West. 24% of Vermont is in extreme drought, not moderate, not light, extreme. 33% of New Hampshire is in extreme drought. I'm just giving you little tidbits. I'm not sitting here trying to be a drought and fire channel. Now, this is more discrimination against Israel. Microsoft pulls the plug on IDF. It's a division of the IDF, I believe, Israel Defense Forces, using one of their systems, a cloud system, to collect telephone call data from people in Gaza. So Microsoft canceled the contract that the IDF had with Microsoft's Azure, I think that's their cloud, to store large volumes of phone call records from Gaza and the West Bank. So they're clearly against Israel. And we're going to talk a lot about the West Bank in a minute. So they're absolutely, the anti-Semitism is growing, and I welcome it, because the more of that comes, the closer comes redemption. Okay, Trump has publicly, first we got a report that Trump said as a condition of this 21-point ceasefire concoction he cooked up with Gaza, Hamas, he also says that Israel will not annex the West Bank. Well, now that was a condition of the peace plan that's probably never going to come to pass. So, because it requires the immediate release of all the hostages. So, what, that's the first step. So, what Trump came out and said now is, I'm going to forbid Netanyahu from annexing the West Bank. It's not going to happen. Annexing the West Bank is going to throw a big monkey wrench into the nation's demands for us to form a two-state solution. The idea is to take the West Bank and Gaza, run a road between the two with the big 25-foot walls on both sides of the road, so these clowns can conduct commerce and business and basically get ready to kill Israel back and forth. Now, if Gaza becomes its own state, it will open up a port, it will open up an airport, and it will take weapons from Iran and other countries, and the West Bank can do the same. As a nation, it has the right to open up an airport and let aircraft come in and out, So Iran brings weapons in there. And the average Israeli knows this, and the Israelis are not going to put up with this. And if Netanyahu tries it, he's going to be out with a vote of no confidence, or worse. Now, some of his cronies may resist this, because they know once Netanyahu is out of office, his criminal cases are going to move like a freight train at full speed, and he's likely going to get a few years in jail for corruption. And then there will be an independent investigation opened up against what happened on October 7th, and Trump and probably 40 or 50 of his friends in the military area of the government will get convicted of something. Believe me, what happened was not it just happenstance. It was allowed to happen, in my opinion. And there's probably 1 million people in Israel or more that'll agree with that. So Netanyahu's been stalling that off. He had his own military run an investigation and said, oh, they're all squeaky clean. Yeah, right. Nobody bought that. So the Attorney General wants it, and he's stopping it. So once he's off the presidency, it'll start again. But the problem is, the next schmuck to be the prime minister, not the president, to be the prime minister, is going to be another Satan bot, idiot. A transactional idiot. So what, are we going to get a gain? No, you're not going to get a gain that way. The only way you're going to get a gain is when the two judges, which are the two witnesses, Enoch and Elijah, run Israel, which is coming very soon. They know how to conduct war. So Yemen hurt people yesterday in Eilat at a hotel with a drone, some deaths. So then yesterday, several hours later, Netanyahu dispatches a lot of planes down there to bomb them. I told you that would happen. And they bombed some military bases belonging to the Houthis. I don't have the death count yet, so I doubt they killed very many, if any. Probably a handful got killed. I don't know what their target was. Netanyahu likes to go around and target real estate. What a schmuck. Did Patton or MacArthur run around targeting real estate? Is that how they fought the war? This is idiot procedure. If you want to fight a war to win, you don't target the real estate, okay? The two witnesses are not going to target the real estate. They know how to do it. I will read you a scripture of how they take care of these people that Netanyahu will not take care of. They're going to clean his mess up. Not for him, for Israel and for Jehovah. Zechariah 12, verse 6 is very easy. The churches never tell you that this scripture exists. And if they do, they distort it. Zechariah 12, 6. In that day will I make the governors, that's the judges of Judah, like an earth of fire among the wood. Now, who do you know has fire come out of their mouth? And like a torch of fire in a sheaf. Who do you know that has fire coming out of their mouth? He said it twice because there's two of them. And they shall devour, not a good translation, burn up all the people round about on the right hand and on the left, and Jerusalem shall remain still in her own place. They twist that translation. Now, this is talking about the siege, if you don't know about it. It starts out in verse 1, the burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, Jehovah, which stretcheth forth the heavens and layeth the foundations of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about. So they're going to be very scared. When they shall be in the siege, a siege is a surrounding, not an invasion. Siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. Now, to put a siege, a surrounding of Jerusalem, this is Jerusalem, tip of my finger. These two fingers are the West Bank that wraps around Jerusalem. So the West Bank has to be full of enemies, Muslims, if you will, that will surround Jerusalem, okay, for the siege. So this whole thing with Trump and the West Bank is following God's plan as set forth in Bible prophecy. Now, remember, Netanyahu doesn't kill the enemies of Israel. He leaves them there to raise up and kill us again another day. In my opinion, he's a curse on Israel. So the Hamas is still in Gaza. The Hezbollah is still in Lebanon. There's a lot of bombs that are still in Syria. They're still in Iraq, tons of them. They're still in Iran. There's tons of them in Jordan. And Jordan is Edom, by the way. They're in Saudi Arabia, which is Arabia, and they're in Yemen, which is Edom, and they're in Egypt. And then you got Turkey as well. They're all surrounding us. The siege is growing. Sanctions, cutting trade contacts with us. It's growing. You watch. Hey, shut up! Shut up! No! You want to go home? Some other dog's got my dog excited about nothing. Okay, so now we're in Zechariah 12:3. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all the people, all that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people, it says call, which is all. People is not correctly translated. The word is heathen. All the heathen of the earth, of the land, be gathered together against it. If it was all the heathen of the earth, there'd be nobody left to go bad and Gog and Magog and all that stuff. So when it says the land, God means the land of Israel from the Nile to the Euphrates, from the Nile to the Euphrates. It says Euphrates to the Nile, actually. And what does that include? Well, it includes to the west of the Euphrates, Turkey. It's about 2/3 of Turkey, by the way. Iraq, good piece of Iraq, and Syria. And it has all of Lebanon. And I believe it would include all of Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, Jordan, which is Moab. Ammon is North Jordan. That's where the capital is, and they submit to Israel and they do well. But central and southern Jordan is Moab, and it gets wiped out. Saudi Arabia, which gets it, but not that terribly bad. And Yemen, which is Edom, and it gets annihilated. Then you have Egypt, and they get busted up, and they go on a 40-year diaspora. And the other countries you have, that would be our land, which is, we're talking about the Nile, to the right hand or the east of the Nile. You have Egypt, Sudan, South Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, Djibouti, Somalia, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and I think I covered them all. So the land that he gave to us in Genesis 15 by covenant, it says covenant, breathed in the Hebrew, which is covenant, is about, as a guess, 100 times bigger than the land we have now. So it's these people that are getting us. And some of the people say that's the inner problem. And they reference Psalm 83, which is pretty close to it. Maybe it's right, I don't know. Psalm 83 is a prayer request, not a prophecy, but it does seem to match. So maybe there's something to it, I don't know. But you've got it right here in Zechariah 12, you know. So let's keep reading. What verse was I up? So it says the ones that are gathering together are going to get cut in pieces. Now, cut in pieces is old days talk for when they fought with swords and spears and lances and daggers. You know, you get chopped up, you're dead. Zechariah 12:4. In that day, now this is a day. It's the day of vengeance, not the great day of the Lord. It's a day of vengeance. Now, some of you don't know this because it's very sad that the churches will not teach you this. They don't want you to know, or they would teach it. Let's not kid ourselves. Isaiah 34:8. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance and the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. Now, when it says year, that's a very bad translation. It's a word called shanat, which is a period of time designated for the work of the Lord. So it's not a literal year, but it's probably not a century or a decade. You know, it's probably somewhat related to a year. But it could be probably 2, 3, 4 years as well, you know, just giving you a rough idea. So I think that's a poor translation. It's a period of time designated for the recompenses. And the day of the Lord appears to be a day, a specific day, 24-hour thing, you know. For the controversy of Zion, controversy is a poor word. For the fighting over Zion, that's what it's saying. Okay. Now, you remember the day of the Lord, there's some interesting things that go with this, like in Isaiah 63, I think. Is it 64? I think it's 63 verse 4. Let's see if I'm right. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. So the day of vengeance is associated with the year of recompenses, which is year is a bad word for that, but and it's associated with the year of redemption, the year of my redeemed. And that could also be not a 12-month year. It could be 36 months, 48, 21. I don't know. It's so we don't get to know the time. We don't know the day of the hour and other things. Okay. It's up to the Lord, Jehovah, to do this. So the day of vengeance being associated with the year of redemption and also the year of vengeance makes me think that this particular day of vengeance is a pivot point or a transition point. When we leave the year of recompenses, we enter the day of vengeance, which then, when that day is over, we're in redemption. Okay? All right. Now, I know some of you don't know this, but when you want to reject me, just remember I'm reading you the scriptures and then you're rejecting me. So you're rejecting the scriptures. And Yeshua said, when you reject knowledge, I will reject you. I'm just telling you, you're rejecting me for reading you the scriptures, and that's not a good thing. It's not a sign of you being a strong believer walking in the Lord. It sounds pretty bad. Okay? And I told you that, Hezbollah is still in Lebanon. Egypt's on our border in the Sinai Peninsula with over 100,000 troops. Yemen is attacking us all the time. Saudi is telling us if we annex the West Bank, it's a red line. Jordan is threatening us. Some terrorists came in from Jordan on a truck delivering aid to Gaza and shot up some Israelis the other day. Jordan's bad news. Syria is full of murderers that want to kill Jews, and so is Iraq, and Iran keeps attacking us, and Turkey keeps saying that the Muslims should raise a 5 million man army and wipe us out. And Lebanon got Hezbollah. So what more can I tell you? Do you need more than that? The siege is in almost there. It's kind of a siege now, but it's not yet in its fullness. But when they're cutting off commerce and they're talking about giving us sanctions, the next step is they're going to come and disassemble on our borders, and nothing's going to get in and nothing's going to get out. You watch. That's when God's two witnesses are going to burn them up. The deliverance of Israel has to be done in a way that the whole world knows it was Jehovah that did it. Not Trump, not the IDF, Jehovah. So now we're in maybe Zechariah 12:4. In that day, saith Jehovah, that's the day of vengeance, I will smite every horse with astonishment and his rider with madness upon the house of Judah, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness. And the governors or the judges would be more correct of Judah. Now, the land that we have now is Judah. It's not Israel. We don't have all the land yet. We don't have the 10 tribes yet. So it's called Judah and Jerusalem by the Lord. And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and then they twist it and they say, is their strength? No. The inhabitants of Jerusalem's strength is in Jehovah of hosts, God. So at this time, there's a lot of real believers in Jerusalem, which is not the case today. In that day, if Jehovah's your God, do you call Yeshua a bastard and reject him? I don't think so. In that day will I make the governors or the judges of Judah like an earth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they shall burn up all the people round about on the right hand than on the left, and Jerusalem shall remain still inhabited in her own place. Now, mind you, with the fire, it could be lightning. Now, when you get hit by lightning, you burn up, okay? So the word in Hebrew could go either way, okay? But this is something where they're burning up millions of people. It's not just fire coming out of their mouth and devouring people that are messing with them. This is burning up millions and millions of people at the same time. So I don't know what that looks like, but I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. Jehovah also shall Jehovah shall save. Now that word is 3467, which is Yasha, which is the root of Yeshua's name. So it's not really save, it's salvation. Okay, but they say save, I would write it, Jehovah shall salvation, but that's bad English, right? The tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. In that day, that's the day of vengeance, shall Jehovah defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David. Now, feeble means old, frail man like me, but maybe worse. Walkers, canes, crutches, bent over, and they're fighting like David. David killed Goliath, a giant. Cut his head off. His head was probably this big. His head might have been the size of a grizzly bear head or something. I don't know. And he killed a lion, he killed a bear, and was a great warrior. That's what the feeble are going to be like. So I'm going to show you how this comes to pass. Okay? Just be patient. And the house of David shall be as Elohim, not Jehovah, Elohim, as the angel of the Lord before them. What was the angel of the Lord that went before them in the wilderness with Moses and Aaron and showed them the path to go and pack up the tabernacle and follow him? That was the glory of God of Israel, which is an angel that God put his name in. That's in, I think, Exodus 20, verse 23, or Exodus 23, verse 20. I forget. It's one of the two. And that angel had his name, Jehovah, put in him. So sometimes in the scriptures, he's referred to as Jehovah. Of course, Jehovah gave him his name in him. This is Michael, the big angel, the highest angel, who rises up against the enemies of Israel. Okay, that's who it is. The angel of the Lord before them. And he killed in the Old Testament 140,000 or so people in one day, something like that. He could probably kill a lot more. That's what the house of David becomes like. See, these Goyim really bought into it with the games they played with us and Jehovah. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the heathen that come against Jerusalem. He's going to destroy all of them. How about that? And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication. So what happened? They got the Holy Spirit poured out on them. So would it be safe to say they're believers now if they have the Holy Spirit poured out on them? How could you say no? You have to say yes. So now they're saved. Okay, then what happens? And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced. Gee, I wonder who they pierced. Yeshua. Remember, he was hanging there and they stuck a spear in his side and water and blood came out, and they say, well, that was the beginning of the church, which is an interesting statement. Not sure it's true, but it's definitely interesting. The water would be for the Holy Spirit, and the blood would be the communion. Maybe, I don't know. Scripture doesn't tell us that specifically. So I say, I don't know, but it sounds good. And they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. In that day, the day of vengeance, shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem as the mourning I had Ramon. Okay. And it goes on and describes how all Israel is mourning. They're mourning because they feel so bad because they've mocked and made fun and slandered Yeshua their whole life. They say he's not a prophet, he's not the Son of God, he didn't rise from the dead, and they made up a story about him being born of the Holy Spirit because he's really a bastard, and they call it a mamzer in Hebrew, and his mother was no good. Okay, that's how they deal with Yeshua. So that's why they're in mourning. They feel terrible. Now they know because he appeared in the clouds. So what they saw, I'll put this together for you, is Matthew. There's a lot of scriptures. I'll just give you some. What they saw was Matthew 24:30. But they will see, and what we'll all see. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. The sign is a miraculous thing. And then shall all the tribes of the land, not the earth, of the land mourn. And then we just read that. They're mourning. We read it, right? And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Now, they'll teach you that it's him returning to earth. That's not it. The appearing in the clouds is not to return to earth. We don't see here all the angels coming on white horses with their swords. We don't see Yeshua wearing the garment with the blood, with the double-edged sword coming out of his mouth, riding on a horse from heaven. No, none of that. And he's seated at the right hand of God the Father. Okay, now, you're going to get confused if I don't do the next verse. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. And you'll hear the trumpet from heaven when this happens, by the way, when he appears. And they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the end of heaven to the other. Now, these angels gathering them is Matthew 13, the tares and the wheat. They're getting rid of the tares. They're binding them up in bundles, getting ready to be burned in the fire, meaning the lake of fire, and they throw them in the pit. They're dead. The tares grow up with the wheat, and they look the same, and he tells them not to separate them because you don't know who's who. So this is the churchianity people that behave out overtly on the outside to some extent anyway, like they're believers. Okay, and they're gone. Then he gathers the people to come to the land. They stop in the wilderness as per Ezekiel chapter 20 verse 33, and they enter into the bond of the covenant, and they pass under the rod, and then they come to Israel. And the bad ones, the ones that lie, adultery, steal, call on unclean spirits, stuff like that, they die in the wilderness apparently. Okay, so that's what it's talking about here. This is not a rapture up to heaven. Nothing in there should make you think of that. Now, the only thing that'll make you think of that is the schmucks in the churches. 1 John 3:2 gives us insight. Beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, that's not return to earth, that's appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is, the risen, glorified Christ. You will be like him. We'll get into this a little bit more. Now let's talk about how we get to be like him. John 6, verse 40. Now I'm giving you all the scriptures, and you want to go reject them. Very nice. I think it's very sad that actually you do it, but don't think you're rejecting me. You're rejecting the scriptures that I'm reading to you. Not me, the scriptures. John 6:40, and this is the will of him that sent me. That's Jehovah's will. That everyone which seeth the Son of Man and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. So all the true believers get raised up on the same day, the last day. There's no left behind rapture. That's a cock and bull story. It says it again in John 6:39, one verse earlier. And this is the Father's will, which hath sent me, that of all which he hath given me, I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again at the last day. All that he gave Yeshua gets raised up on the same day, the last day, which means there's no more days. The millennium's over and so forth, right? Not pre-trib, not mid-trib, not post-trib. There's no such thing as a left-behind rapture. The Lord will deliver you from the wrath to come. Does not mean you're getting raptured. It's nonsense. Okay. So John 6:40 says you'll have everlasting life. Okay, that is not immortality. In New Jerusalem, it says there is no death. But we're not in New Jerusalem yet, so you have everlasting life, which the word everlasting is olam. It means life off on into the future at an indefinite period of time. Probably something like what they had before the flood, maybe 1,000 years or more. It says, my people's days shall be like that of a tree. Now you know what that means. Trees die, but they can live thousands of years. It says even the children get tired when they run, but you won't get tired. All right. So when you see them, you have this everlasting life. All right. So now we need to take a look at what all this means. So we jump into Malachi 4, and it gives us a look at this. Okay. I'll start in verse 1. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven. That's the day of vengeance. And all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Jehovah of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. And unto you that fear my name, so in other words, the believers, the ones that had the Spirit poured out on them, but unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness, and the word for son there is Shemesh, like S-U-N, arise with healing in his kanaf, his extremities. See, they wore the tzitzit in their robes, and all the borders down by the cuff at the bottom and the sides where they'd open, they put the tzitzit, not just 4 tzitzit around the waist, they put lots of tzitzit up the tassels. And when the woman with the issue of blood grabbed the tassels, she got healed. And that was to let the people know that Yeshua walking around then was Zechariah, was Malachi 4, the Shemesh of righteousness, okay? Yet to appear in the, the way it, okay, how does this, so let me get it. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness, you see, S-U-N, shall arise. Okay, where does the sun appear? In the clouds. Where does Yeshua appear? In the clouds. Did you get that? You got it, right? Okay. Son of righteousness arise with healing in his extremities. That's the tzitzit. And you shall go forth. It doesn't exactly say it right. It's you shall go forth and frolic about like calves from the stall. Calves are baby cows. So they're going to jump around and bark and run around like a baby cow. In other words, you're young again. My guess is, I would say a low of maybe 18 or 20, probably more around 21, 23, or I'm guessing something like that. Possibly even 30, but I don't think so. Maybe, I don't know. And you shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I shall do this, saith Jehovah of hosts. Well, These are the Satan bots, the bad, the evil, the wicked, the 2/3 that get cut off in Zechariah 13, verse 8 and 9. They're the ones getting killed in Malachi 4 because their ashes are under your feet. The ones in the siege are not in Israel, they're on our borders, so their ashes wouldn't be under our feet. The ones in Israel, those ashes would be under our feet. Remember you the law of Moses, my servant. That's the same law the church says is dead, by the way, which I commanded unto thee in Horeb for all Israel with the statutes and judgments. Okay. Behold, I will send you Elijah, Eliyahu, Hanabi, the prophet, Eliyahu Hanabi or Eliyahu Hanabi, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of Jehovah. The great and dreadful day of Jehovah is the great day of the Lord. That's Gog and Magog. And he comes earlier, as you could see in Ezekiel, in Malachi 3. He shall turn the heart of the fathers towards the children and the heart of the children towards their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. Okay. Now, you also need to read Revelation 1:7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they which pierced him, saints, right out of Zechariah 12, and all kindreds of the earth. It's all the tribes of the land, is what it's really saying. They're twisting it on purpose. Shall wail, that's how they mourn, because of him, even so, amen. This is Zechariah 12 in Revelation. Now, you believers believe, and you will see him because every eye sees him. So you're going to get the everlasting life too. And you become incorporated into Israel. All Israel shall be saved, and you come to Israel in the next great Exodus. And if you need more convincing, go to Ezekiel 47, the last 3 verses. You get an equal share of the land according to the tribe you sojourn with, and you and all your descendants become permanent members of that tribe. And you need to be in Israel in prophecy to get into New Jerusalem. They never teach you this because they don't want you to know it. Okay? This is in Revelation 21, maybe verse 9. Let's see. And he carried me, verse 10, he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain. That would be Mount Zion, I believe. And showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, having the glory of God, and her light was like unto a stone. That's Michael, the glory God of Israel, is in there enthroned along with Yeshua. Most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. And had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and the gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. So New Jerusalem has 12 gates. They're actually made out of a giant pearl. It says elsewhere in this chapter. Each gate is guarded by an angel. So you can go through the gate of Asher or Levi or Judah or Naphtali, etc., Benjamin, but you got to go through one of those gates according to the tribe you're in. However, there is no Baptist gate, Assembly of God's gate, Lutheran gate, Pentecostal gate, Catholic gate, and so forth. Got it? all Israel shall be saved. When they tell you where the church was standing next to Israel, but we're not Israel, that's Satan laughing at you, because all Israel shall be saved. Okay, let's take a look at the live stream, see if I got questions. Remember, I am doing this all from the scriptures. I'm not sitting here ad-libbing. Okay? So let's go back into the news and get a couple other events straightened out here. So Trump has turned against Israel by telling us we can't annex the West Bank and take our land back and stop them from forcing a two-state solution down our throat. Well, I think God has probably had his fill of America right now. What I think. The Likud member of the Knesset says Israel loves Trump, but the West Bank annexation solely the Israeli people decide on. They're not going for it. Trust me, this is the falling away between America and Israel. And it says that, when America gets destroyed, the people come here and, they say, well, let our blood, let the Israeli blood be on America. Now, just as crazy as Comey and the FBI getting indicted, the former president of France, Sarkozy, was sentenced to 5 years in prison for seeking funds from Gaddafi. That's Libya. He's dead. Pretty weird, huh? There was a power outage in the Grand Central Station in New York City yesterday, or could have been last night. That's a big train station. They got subways there, and they got also real trains, like Amtrak kind of trains. Now, this comes after 9/11. Fiber cables were cut in Mississippi, and this thing closed on me. Hold on. Let me get it. I'll find it. Hold on. This was after the fiber cables or fiber optic cables were cut in Mississippi and Louisiana, which was yesterday. And fiber cables at the Dallas airport were also disrupted on Friday last week, I believe, which caused delays and cancellations for thousands of flights. Okay, Hungary what's going on there? Hungarian jets intercept 5 Russian fighter jets. That happened near Latvia. So that's the other country that Russia's harassing. Russia's getting a little nuts. So they got Hungary, they did it in France, did it in Denmark, did it in Poland. That's quite a bit. A cyber attack attacking Germany's Berlin International Airport is causing delays and cancellations of flights. The Danish people are now also, not only did they have airspace incursions from Russia, there's a Russian warship off the coast of Denmark with their transponder turned off, which you could always argue is there's a threat of a collision when the transponder is off, you know. Israelis waking up. I'll read this to you. They are waking. No, they're walking into a death trap. The fighters' parents, this is about Gaza, our military, vowed to stop the war. The parents of the soldiers, of fighters in Gaza, are announced an organized protest starting next Tuesday. So they're protesting because they're saying that I want to try to get the right words here, claiming that the war has turned into a political war to preserve Netanyahu's rule at the expense of their children's lives. This is true. He's afraid to end the war because his criminal case trial will immediately proceed, and the Attorney General and the Supreme Court are after him because he tried to reduce their powers, and they see him as the real threat to the country that he is, and they'll get rid of him. So he can't stop the war. As long as there's a war, he can say, well, I can't appear in court. I got the war. I'm sorry. So after the difficult evening in Eilat, which was yesterday evening, they had the day before we had that attack. The day before yesterday, no, it was yesterday during the night. I'm sorry. Waked up to partially encouraging news less than a day after the drone explosion in the city center, the mayor of Eilat recalls the severe consequences of the Houthi terror. The Eilat port has been shut down for almost 2 years. See, Netanyahu doesn't tell us that. He won't attack Yemen. He's saving them for another war, I think. So if Trump makes him shut down Gaza, he'll light up Yemen to stay out of jail. So he lets us attack us, and lets them attack us every day, and it costs some people their lives, and a lot got wounded. He's a curse on us, in my opinion. So now we're finding out the port in Eilat was closed for 2 years. Okay. Drama during the raid on Yemen yesterday. It was several hours, and we came after them. Channel 14 reports that during the operation, the Houthis launched 3 surface-to-air missiles at the Israeli warplanes. One was actually taken down by one of our jets. The other 2 didn't do anything. And they finished the mission. All the Israeli planes came back to base unharmed, all the pilots unharmed. We never lost a pilot in any of these attacks since 2023 that I know of. No, we didn't. So remember that thing with the Kaliningrad is there's people hyping it out of proportion. Just remember that. Now we'll cover a little bit of prophecy, and then I want to talk about Sabbath. Isaiah 30, verse 26. Moreover, the light of the moon shall be as the light of the sun, and the light of the sun shall be sevenfold, as the light of 7 days. In the day that the Lord Now, I think that's when we get the new heaven and the new earth, which happens when Yeshua appears in the clouds and we have everlasting life, and the wicked are cut off. A lot of them are. the ones that were assembled against us. Now, I want to talk about Exodus chapter 16, verse 29, which I will actually read to you. See, for that Jehovah hath given you the Sabbath, therefore he giveth you on the sixth day the bread of 2 days. That was the manna they got. So they got a double dose on Friday, and it didn't go bad. Abide you every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath day. Okay, so I'm going to take a break. You think about that. Every man stay in his place on the Sabbath day. Somebody asked me this question, and I gave them the answer. And usually when there's one person that asks, it's 25 that probably have the question that didn't ask it. And I'm going to go through it. Give you the meaning of the word place. So let's take a break for a minute, and I'll be right back, and we'll get into this. And it's important. Now, first thing to be on guard is some of the church liars will be more than happy to tell you, oh, you see, that's why we meet on Sunday, because you can't travel on Saturday and we do the Sabbath. That's a cock and bull story. They don't observe the Sabbath. They're saying Sunday is the Sabbath. They're liars. So don't fall for that. The word place means in the Hebrew your dwelling or your location. Now, how do we work this? Well, we go back to the days Yeshua was in Israel on earth. And he went to the synagogues and preached. The apostles went too. So were they breaking the scriptures? No, not really. And I will explain. The Israelites have a concept that is not in the Bible. Not literally, but they follow it. It's called the Sabbath day's walk. And a Sabbath day's walk is about 1/3 of a mile. And what they did in Israel, and they still do today, is they put synagogues up in the various communities and cities so that you really shouldn't have to ever walk more than 1/3 of a mile to get into the synagogue. Let me see if that Sabbath day's walk does appear in the Bible or not. Maybe it's in there, Testament or something. I'll take a quick look. It is. I thought it was in the New Testament, and it is, which is good. So we can build on this a little bit stronger. It's in Acts chapter 1, verse 12. Then returned they unto Jerusalem from the mount called Olive, that Mount of Olives, which is from Jerusalem a Sabbath day's journey. It's 1/3 of a mile east of Jerusalem. Ta-da! So that is what's considered your Sabbath day's journey, which does appear in the scriptures. So you do get some credibility here. Let me keep reading here. Hold on. They actually say it's greater. It actually goes up to 1 kilometer. I don't know. Maybe the Mount of Olives is 1 kilometer from Jerusalem. I'm not sure. I ran into an ultra-Orthodox guy that was almost a rabbi. His son was a rabbi, and he told me that I was in pretty good shape using 1/3 of a mile. He said, yeah, that's about it. I think you're right, It might have been a little more, though. Hang on a minute. In Numbers 36:5 and Joshua 3:4, it also mentions distances of 2,000 cubits in other contexts, not in the Sabbath context, which equates to about a kilometer or 0.6 of a mile, 0.6 of a mile. The Sabbath day's work, I believe, is only found in the New Testament. So it is consistent, with Exodus, the Exodus 16:29. So it would allow you to go to the Sabbath go to the synagogue on the Sabbath, because that's how the cities today in Israel are built that way. You don't have to walk that far. For me to get to synagogue in my little community, about 4 blocks, maybe 5, something like that. I think there's a second synagogue someplace I've never gone to that could be closer. I'm not sure. So that's how they do it. Okay, so what this is, stay in your own place. If it meant stay in your own house, it would say stay in your own house. It would say Baitshali, your house. Or Habaita. It would say Habaita, I think, which means your house. It doesn't say that. So it says place. So you stay in your own area. So in other words, let's say you wanted to go 100 or 200 yards to your buddy's house and hang out on Sabbath. Yeah, go. You don't have to stay in your house. You don't have to stay in your backyard. Okay? You're not supposed to work. Your animals don't work. But you have to feed your animal and water your animal on the Sabbath. Or what kind of Sabbath does your poor animal have, walking around hungry and thirsty? Shame on you. Okay? The animal gets fed and watered. You got to do that. Let's say you got a 9-month-old kid, and the kid's getting himself all soiled, and you're not going to wash the kid off. What kind of Sabbath does the kid have? Right? You know how you take a small child, let's say 14 months, you put them in a high chair, and they eat. You got to give them a bath after they eat. You know that, right? It's food's all over the place, So you're not going to give them a bath. You're going to let them run around dirty. Now, the kid may not care, but they're happier when they're clean. They don't stop and think, oh, I'm dirty. I look like a pig. I better take a bath. No, but they're going to be happier when they're clean. Okay, so you got to, if they get messed up, full of poop and that, yeah, you got to do it. Or if they pour cereal all over their hair or something, come on. And you got to feed the kid too. A little kid. Or what kind of Sabbath do they have? But the idea is your regular work you don't do. You don't travel. You don't get in the car and go to the movies. The Jews don't carry money on Shabbat just to make sure they don't buy anything and make work for somebody else. Does it say you can't carry money on Shabbat? No, it does not. Can you turn your lights on and off on Shabbat? Of course you can. Are you creating a fire when you turn your lights on? Well, let me ask you a question. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Okay. When you turn your light on, do you normally smell smoke and see your room fill up with smoke? No, because it's not a fire. Okay, if you got an electric burner stove and you turn it on, are you kindling a fire? I don't understand how you could say that. How about a microwave? Is that kindling a fire? How about a toaster oven? Is that kindling a fire? How about a gas burner stove? Ah, that's kindling a fire. How did the Orthodox work their way around that? They have what's called a Shabbat stove. It's a regular stove with the propane. And what they do is they take a burner and they turn it not on full, they turn it up like a fourth, a low flame, right? You want to take 2 burners and do that, it's just more gas. And they turn it on before the Sabbath and they turn it off after the Sabbath, and they leave it on. So if they want to make soup or tea or coffee, they just move the pot over the burner. It's going to take a longer time because it's a low flame, but it gets not that long, you know. Now, I have the Shabbat refrigerator. Is there such a thing that really should exist? No. What happens if I set it? It has like a calendar, and I could set it for Shabbat. And then what it does is when you open up the door on Shabbat, the light does not come on because the rabbis teach them that when they open up the door, the light comes on, they're kindling a fire on the Sabbath. Oh my gosh, tell me another one. How about pink elephants flying, you know? So they disconnect the light in the refrigerator. What else do they do? Refrigerators have a motor with a compressor, as you should know. You hear it, right? So they have when you kick the motor on and you kick it off, which is how your refrigerator normally works, there's a spark, an electrical spark. There's no smoke. An electrical spark, so they'll tell them they're kindling a fire. What nonsense. So they turn the compressor engine motor for the refrigerator down to a very low speed on Shabbat. You barely hear it, and it stays that way the whole 24 hours. We have it disconnected. What do they do for the lights? Well, they will leave lights on before Shabbat, and they just stay on during Shabbat. What else could they do, according to their leaders? I use the word loosely. They can use a timer, and the light operates, let's say it's a lamp of some sort, and it's on a timer, so you set the light to turn on at 7 in the morning, so you don't have to switch the light on and kindle a fire. It automatically goes on. Oh, that's really them. Now, what's a Shabbat elevator? Oh, sit down and enjoy this. This is sick, okay? What they do in, ultra-Orthodox hotels and apartment buildings is, and probably the Orthodox too, is Friday afternoon, they set the elevator to Shabbat, which means that the elevator stops at every floor going up and down. So the elevator is constantly running all Shabbat. Now, you don't want to push the button. Let's say you're on floor 4. You don't want to push the button to call for the elevator because that's going to register and make a spark. So you would be kindling a fire. So now a spark becomes a fire, right? What kindling a fire means is you don't go gathering the firewood and sit there and go like this and work hard or with the flint or whatever to get the fire started. That's what it means. It's cold in Jerusalem. It snows. You get waist-deep snow. I've been in waist-deep snow in Jerusalem. So, I mean, it's cold over there. So let's say you got a 4-month-old baby, right? So you're not going to start a fire before Shabbat? That's not kindling a fire. You already have the fire going. And then you gather your firewood before Shabbat, so you have a nice pile. And then every now and then you flip some wood on the fire to keep the fire hot, so you and the kid and the children don't freeze to death on Shabbat. How hard is that to figure out? Going around and collecting the firewood, a guy got killed in the wilderness for that. God killed him. Okay, that is something you don't do. And sitting there working to start the fire, you don't do. Can you start the fire before Shabbat and throw the wood on? I would say yes. What happens if the fire goes out on Shabbat? Would you be able to kindle it? Well, I think the idea here is don't let the fire go out on Shabbat. If it's cold, take care of your fire. Chances are that if you dozed off or something like that, your fire is going to be still there. You just load it up. You watch it, that's all. Okay? That's how you keep your infants warm. You keep yourselves warm. And that's really probably how they did their cooking. They probably had a way to hang a pot or something over the flame, or I don't know. Maybe they had a separate pot. Well, I don't know what they did. They probably had a number of ways of doing it. But they did a Shabbat compliance way of doing it, I'm sure. Does getting in your car and turning the motor on, vroom, right? Does that make sparks? Yes, it makes sparks. Of course, it makes sparks. Or glow plugs in a diesel. Is that kindling a fire? Well, it makes smoke, but it's not in the same sense. But I myself would think you shouldn't use the car on Shabbat. You should just stay close enough to walk. Okay? Should you go to the movies on Shabbat? No, you're doing commerce and you're going far from your house. What if you were 2 blocks away from I lived once where I was only out of my apartment complex. I was maybe a block to a movie theater. Could I walk into the movie theater and watch a movie? Well, you could. Really, you wouldn't be breaking the walking thing, but you're engaging in commerce on the Shabbat. You're making work for other people, and I would avoid it. Can you watch TV and Netflix and stuff on Shabbat? Absolutely. What about turning it on in the fire thing? Yeah. If you see your fire, smoke coming out of your computer or your TV, there's a problem there, but it normally isn't going to happen, okay? What about if you have a jacuzzi and you want to go take a jacuzzi? Go take a jacuzzi. What if you got a swimming pool in the backyard? You want to go swimming? Don't go to swimming for an exercise. That's not correct. Don't do a lap pool. Don't do laps. You want to get in the pool and cool off on a hot day and swim across the pool or a little lap or something like that, or get your kids in there and throw ball around. That's fine. What about kids playing ball and running around and chasing each other and knocking themselves out on Shabbat? That's what kids do. Is that work? Is that their job? No, just let them do it. Just let them do it. What about if the dog wants to run around and chase them? And just let them do it. They're not working. That's how they play, right? I'd say with the average house cat or all the house cats I've ever had, which is several, every day is Shabbat. Cats are pretty smart. They have a 7-day-a-week Shabbat. It's every day Shabbat. All right. How do you do the food on Shabbat? Well, see, the wife got to rest on Shabbat as much as possible. When you got small children, she's going to have a certain amount of work, kids. It's unavoidable. But she doesn't clean the house. Okay, now if you drop a bottle of milk, does she say, "Oh, I'll just leave this there and rot the rug until"? No, you clean it up. That's hygiene and stuff like it. You do it. Okay. Can you take a shower on Shabbat? You can. Well, they say it's work. You could say that, but is that what you do for a living? Is that your livelihood? It says servile work, your ordinary work. So I wouldn't be too concerned about taking a shower. A lot of people do take the shower before Shabbat, and then they take it after Shabbat. And you could certainly do that, but I don't think you're exactly working. Is it better to take the shower before Shabbat and then after Shabbat? I think so. But I don't think it's a serious violation, or maybe not even a violation. You wash your hands, don't you, on Shabbat? So the ultra Orthodox won't have shoes with shoelaces on Shabbat. They use this, what's called the slide. You just stick your foot in to stop the work. Now, tying your shoelaces is work on Shabbat. That's getting a little nuts, isn't it? What about fastening your belt or putting your hat on? Or putting your kippah on or something, I don't wear a kippah. This is a hat. I like wearing hats. Usually I put the air conditioning on it. It stops it from blowing on my head. They put kippahs on under the hat. I'm just trying to show you I don't have any. And they wouldn't take their hat off like I just did. Okay, that's not it. It says no man should pray or prophesy with his head covered. This is not the same concept. What they're talking about is when they put the prayer shawl up over their head and they secretly start praying and doing things secretly, and that's what he doesn't want. Hiding, like, with the hoodie kind of concept to hide yourself, okay. So if you want to have a big Shabbat meal, how do you do it? You do it like Fiddler on the Roof did it. It's easy. How does that work? Friday afternoon, the wife and the women folk and the men or whoever want to participate can prepare a nice Shabbos. Shabbos is Yiddish for Shabbat, sorry. Shabbat dinner. Now, there's a good way to do it. Get yourself some nice paper plates, not the little skimpy plastic junkers. The foam plates are good too. They're pretty thick, and the good paper plates are like Chinette, Fonda, Royal Fonda. They have several companies that make them in America. You can get them in Israel, but they're not Chinette. They're like a cardboard or something or pasteboard. They're very good. So you can use those. You can use your real dishes too, but so you set your table before Shabbat, right? You put your silver out, your napkins, paper towels, the water, the juice, whatever you're gonna, milk, whatever, right? And you prep your food. You want to bake chicken, you want to go to the grill and make steaks and burgers and hot dogs and pizza, whatever you want to eat. You want to eat chicken chow mein, you want to eat beef chow fun, go ahead. You want to have, some kind of lasagna, go ahead, whatever you want to eat, okay? Make your food, get your food ready, put it on the table before Shabbat. Try to work your timing on that, right? And you could certainly sit down and start eating before Shabbat, or you could wait till Shabbat and then eat. It's your call. And you could have yourselves one big honking meal. Okay? You could now don't sit there and gorge yourself to the point where you're, I wish I didn't eat this, But you could have yourself a nice meal. Let's say you're like me and you normally eat a 6 or 8 ounce steak. You could have a 12 or even a 16-ounce steak. And if you're going to have 8 baked potatoes, you could have 2 baked potatoes or whatever. So you're going to have less desire for food the next day, right? But you don't eat, I wouldn't eat a 24 or 32-ounce steak and a big Caesar salad and 2 or 3 baked potatoes or this many French fries and have some garlic bread with it. I mean, I'm not looking to get myself sick, So now when I was younger, I could knock off a 16-ounce steak and a baked potato and some vegetables and a cheesecake and a Caesar salad, no problem. So it depends where you're at in life. Your old people can't really knock off, big steaks. It's not a great idea. You get bogged down with it, So when does Shabbat start? The word is Erev. It means mixing. Okay? The Arab in Hebrew is called Aravit. It's a mixing because Father Abraham with Hagar, the slave girl. So when is the mixing? It's not when it's dark. It's when the day gets long. Where the shadows get long. At the end of the day, the shadows get long, but you could still see. If you drop the dime on the concrete, you'd still see it. It's starting to get dark. That's your Erev. Okay? It's, of course, a subjective call decision, right? It's the mixing of the day and the night. So the long shadows are bringing in the darkness, and the light is, the daylight is still there. Okay? So that's when it really starts, and that's when you should observe it. Friday night or Friday evening. They call it the evening. Lila is night, evening is Erev. Okay? Everything else is Boker, pretty much. So when it's mixing, that's when it starts. That's really how it works. And then again, when it ends on Saturday, the mixing, right? So you can set this table for a big meal, have a nice Shabbat or Shabbos. When I grew up, everybody in the house, all over, the neighborhood was Yiddish, Yiddish, Yiddish. So Shabbos is Sabbath, uh, and they also call it a good day. So they would say Guten Yontef, and Guten is like the German word good. Jan is the Yiddish word for Yom, which is day. Guten Yontef. Tov is Tov in Hebrew, good. So they would call it a good day, basically. They wish you good. We would say Shabbat Shalom in Israel, and the Yiddish is Guten Yontef. Good day. You should have a good, it means have a good Sabbath day, or it could apply to a holiday also. Guten Yontef. Okay. So forget the Yiddish. We're not going to be using Yiddish in the future. It's of the past. It's a diaspora language. It's in my head because I've had it around me many years in my life. Okay, so moving along. If you're going to do the dinner, then you probably don't want to have much cleanup after dinner because that's work. So you could leave the dishes out. You could take some of the dishes and just put them in the sink. I wouldn't go through the trouble of rinsing them and putting them in the dishwasher and running the dishwasher. Could you run a dishwasher on Shabbos? Yes. Is the dishwasher supposed to observe Shabbos? Let me ask you a question. Is your desk supposed to observe Shabbos? How about your floor? Because it's Shabbos, you shouldn't walk on the floor because it's work for the floor. See, you got to use your head and don't let rabbis and other people mess with your head, okay? Is a car a living thing? Does it get sick? Does it die? Does it have a spirit? Okay. It's an inanimate object, like a toilet. Do you let your toilet rest on Shabbos? How about your water faucet? Am I getting through? Okay. Don't let these rabbis mess with your head. Don't let these other people, the congregation people, mess with your head. So are the Messianic congregations all wrong because they hold services on Saturday and some people drive 100 miles, 20 miles and all that? Yeah, they're wrong. Are they in error? Yeah. Do the leaders know they're in error and doing this on purpose to make the people error? You bet they are. You bet they are. You should not hold a meeting where people have to travel on Shabbos. You should hold it on another day of the week. Does it have to be Sunday? It could be any day you want. It could be Tuesday. Whatever day you want to hold it, you hold it. It's up to you. But you shouldn't do it on Shabbat and get people to drive and leave their place on Shabbat. You're helping people sin. You shouldn't do that. And they know that. The demons know that. That's why they do it, to drag the people down. Okay? Now, so you shouldn't clean the table very much, but also it's not that sanitary to leave the plates there with all the lousy food on it. You can collect flies and roaches, and so you got to have a little balance there. That's why the nice paper plates are good, because you just take the paper plates and you drop them in a garbage line or a plastic bag, and that's the end of it. There's no cleanup. You bloop, goes in. And you could leave food out on the table. So what other things can you do? So is that a mandatory to set a big meal before? No. A lot of women can't do it before Shabbat. They got other obligations. So you don't have to do that before Shabbat. But what are some of the things you could do to avoid yourself, if you're a single guy, or a single gal, to avoid yourself having to make a good big prep meal on Shabbat, what are some of the things you could do to avoid that? Well, tuna, salmon, sardines, an excellent way to take care of it. Okay? If you open up a can of salmon and throw it in a bowl and splash some mayonnaise in it and stir it up, is that really working? I don't think so. What about if you took some steaks and started frying them in a pan on the stove? Well, now we're working, you see? Now we're starting to do work that we should avoid. What about if you took a frozen dinner and put it in a microwave and hit the button and make it? That's not really working, is it? No. What if you put a pizza in there or in a toaster oven and that's not really working? Even if you put it in your oven and come back in 20 minutes, that's not really working. Making a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly. Some people make sandwiches before Shabbat, even cuts the work down even less. That's better. What about leaving snacks around on Shabbat? What do I mean? Well, apple, peaches, pears, raisins, nuts. Get the idea. Okay? Carrots, scallions, whatever you like. Just leave it out or in the fridge and you can go take it and just munch on that. Pieces of cheese, pieces of cold cut. I take cheese and wrap it up with cold cuts and make a sandwich without the bread and eat it. That's, to call that work is pretty much a stretch, I think, to take it out of the container. You know, you could prepare food. You could make burgers and lamb chops or whatever you want before Shabbat, and you could eat it cold. What's the problem there? Making coffee on Shabbat. The way I do that is I have my electric coffee pot, which boils hot water, and I use instant. I drink instant all the time, and that's not exactly making a fire either, you know. So I do that. So I would drink coffee. If you want to drink hot chocolate or tea, you know, I've had on Shabbat ramen noodles and stuff like that. I would just boil water and put it in the thing and wait till it heats up enough and eat it. It's a lousy food, though. It's not really tasty or anything like that. I like soups in the cold weather, but unfortunately you can't get a can of real soup in Israel. They don't sell it anymore, these rats. What they sell is the powdered mix. So I'm eating survivalist dehydrated food, basically. I had to heat up the water and put a couple of tablespoons of the soup mix in there. And it tastes okay, but I don't like it. I'd rather have a can of organic soup with real vegetables in it than that junk, but that's Israel. So you could leave stuff, you know, you could eat very simple things. You could prep some sandwiches. You could take a bowl with, before Shabbat and cut up celery and onions or whatever, tomato, and put it in with tuna or salmon and mayonnaise and, you know, just eat on it on Shabbat. You could pop cans of sardines. You could have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. You could take a bowl, pour milk in it, and throw cereal in it, right? These are all very simple things. Take bread and put butter on it. Take bread and put nothing on it and eat it. What other things can you do? A million things. Potato chips, if you like that. I mean, whatever. I mean, it's not healthy food, but okay. So you don't want to start making yourself and cooking meals on Shabbat. You could prep the stuff before Shabbat, eat it on Shabbat, and after Shabbat, as soon as Shabbat's over, You can go in the kitchen and get yourself your steaks and your baked potatoes and make your garlic bread and make your Caesar salads and everything else. The Shabbat's over. You're back to let's cook a great big meal. So you could have a very large meal before Shabbat, right? Snack your way through Shabbat and have a very large meal after Shabbat. There you go. Can you go out to eat before Shabbat? Well, in Israel, it's pretty hard because they close very early, the restaurants. But outside of Israel, sure. Go to wherever you want to go. Go to Outback in the late afternoon before Shabbat and have yourself a big steak if you want. Yeah. And can you go out after Shabbat and have a big meal? Now, that's what they do in Israel. That's popular. Sure you can. Sure you can. You want to keep it down to a minimum. You don't want to clean the house on Shabbat. You don't want to do the laundry on Shabbat. You don't want to mop the floor, clean the windows, clean the car. You don't wash the car. You don't mow the lawn. I wouldn't wash the dogs unless there was some emergency reason why you had to. And that's it. Most people I know will bathe on Shabbat. You can bathe before Shabbat and then after, but it's not much work, but I don't know. Some people don't like doing it. Maybe it is work. Maybe it's better not to. I usually take a shower on Shabbat. You just take a shower before Shabbat and then take a shower after Shabbat. That's not a big deal. If it bothers you, or maybe it's probably better to do that. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's better to do that. But again, we do wash our hands on Shabbat, Don't go to the gym and work out or lift weights or get on the treadmill on Shabbat. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. If you got the dogs and you want to take them out for Shabbat because they got to go potty, you got to take them a few times. You live in an apartment, you got to take them. It's a Shabbat. They got to have a nice Shabbat too. They want to go for a nice stroll and poop and pee job. So take them out. Normally, I wouldn't take them on a big extended walk if that's your habit. I would minimize it, enough for them to be comfortable and happy, taking care of their business and going home, Are we supposed to eat special food on Shabbat? No, there's no scripture for that. So that's Shabbat, and that's why we don't get in the car and go driving around. We don't go to amusement parks on Shabbat. We don't go to the mall. We don't drive to go to the movies or, go visit our friends 40 miles away. We stay in our own place. Okay. That's what you do. Okay. A gas stove always has a private light going, but not in Israel. In Israel, they got a sparker built into the stoves, and you turn the stove on, and then the gas comes in, and you push it in, and it ignites. It doesn't have a pilot light in Israel. Probably because of Shabbat, but I've never thought about it till this second, and it probably is because of Shabbat. I don't know what else it would be for, except that. I don't know what else it would be. The only thing I can think of would be they're trying to take care of Shabbat. Hold on a second, I might have a prayer request, I don't know. Yeah, the black cherry juice, somebody I recommended take it for gout, is having good results in 3 days, but I think it's going to take at least a week or a month to get the full effect. And if you're feeling it now, it's only going to get a lot better. So that's my take on Shabbat. What about playing with the kids? Sure, you play with the kids. That's not work. But don't do heavy exercise with the kids. You can't stop a 6, 7-year-old kid from running wild without chaining them up. They're going to run and play, but you don't have to. So that's my take on that. Let me see if there was any other news I didn't cover, but I think I did. That's it. Okay, so let's pray for everybody, and you all can join in. If you're a true believer, we'll pray. My Heavenly Father, I'll pray and then you can agree if you like. You can do it even if it's a video, not a live stream. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for all the true believers and their households to have your peace, joy, calm, rest, patience, love, and that you would remove from us any and all problems and difficulties caused by the unclean spirits, and those that serve the unclean spirits, be whatever they are, be it problems from neighbors, family, friends, people nearby, employers, co-workers, businesses, corporations, governments of any sort. Pray that any such problems that have arisen would be removed from all of us and go away without causing us problems. And I pray that these problems will be taken away and never return. And I pray that we understand the scriptures more and better and deeper, and that the videos get better. And I pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and I pray that you will speed up as much as possible our path to redemption. And I pray for Elijah and Enoch to come soon, very soon, as soon as possible. Openly working. I know they're in Israel, but I'm talking about them openly working miraculously. And pray the same for Apostle John. Pray for the next temple to come down, not New Jerusalem, next temple. There's a difference we're aware of. And pray for all our finances, that we have an abundance, and the unclean spirits and those that serve the unclean spirits can no longer cheat, gyp us, rob us, and block us from having money, from expanding our businesses, from doing business. Nothing that all the works they try to financially hinder us don't work for them. All the ways they try to mess up our lives don't work for them anymore. And I pray that every time they try to do bad things to us because we serve you, that the things they try to do to us happen to them. Not us, them. And I submit this prayer request to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and if a true believer, join in. And I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those, being Friday, I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach and Father God Jehovah, and may those of you that love Yeshua HaMashiach have a blessed Shabbat. And I'm out. And that's it, guys. I hope you got something out of this. I'm out.